What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? This is Switch Up Sports with Mighty Q coming to you on a Friday. We are live here in Fargo, North Dakota. For you guys listening, it's not live because we're not live on Facebook or Rumble or Instagram or Facebook or anything like that. We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcast, YouTube, and Rumble. And Switch Up Sports essentially is a sports podcast that delves into the nation's biggest topics. So football is currently going on right now, so primarily a lot of football is talked about during this season. Once football transitions over, there's other things that get talked about. But having played as many sports that I have, I talk numerous sports. So I know different professional athletes in different realms, in different sports of whichever, as well as I have played sports at a high level and continue to play them today. So that's kind of my thing in sports. You know, there's a certain love and passion that I have for sports that I still have yet to have someone, be able to comprehend and understand a lot of different sports that I can. But it definitely helps having the people around me that know their sport and their sport at a very high level. And the other thing that goes along with that is, having different conversations with them. It changes the view because like talking to someone who's played in the NFL completely changes compared to, if you're talking to a guy who played in college, if you're talking to somebody who didn't, and kind of so on and so on. So having those different conversations with those different athletes, it gives me a different perspective because I'm able to mesh what I've done and then some of the stuff that they told me and kind of combine those things together, mesh two things, and that's where I come up with my predictions, my takes, my analysis, my breakdowns, and that's kind of where the football thing goes to, along with numerous other sports. But that's the easy example because right now it's October, we're full swing into football. We're going into week 7 for college football. We're in week 6 for the NFL, and it's interesting because there was a Thursday night game yesterday, so it was Bears Commanders. I didn't watch a single snap because being a Bears fan, and I've got a lot of other stuff going on right now that I'm not really going to sit down and watch football. So I'll watch some, and then the ones that I do watch, and I can give a lot of previews on, but I'm not going to do a lot of like post-week analysis because there's just certain times when I really am not going to sit down and take an entire Sunday to just watch football all day and do that certain stuff. So there are weeks that I will do that, but there's a lot of other stuff that I'm doing, and that's kind of where this podcast comes in. So where I want to start off today is I'm actually going to do this new series inside of Switch Up Sports podcast that is going to be a teaching series of some sort. So it's called Stories of a Wrestler, and I'm just basically going to be giving different stories and the different analysis that I've had in that time. So it was interesting because I was at the gas station, and I like to chew gum, and you're looking at all the different gum, and the gum game doesn't change. You still have your Hubba Bubbas, your Bubblicious, your all these random things that are like super cheap and have no flavor and don't stick for very long. You've got your Extra, your 5, your all these different types of gum. Everybody knows it doesn't change place to place. Like the gum market doesn't change. So I'm sitting there and I'm looking at gum, and I normally buy Extra, and I get the Polar Ice or something like that. It's got like the little beads in it. It's like a mint flavor. And I'm looking at it, and I'm just like, I don't really want to keep getting the same flavor of gum. I was like, let me switch and switch up. So I was like, I'm gonna get 5 gum. I was like, I haven't chewed 5 gum in a really long time, and I'm like, sure, 5 gum it is. And at first I was gonna grab a watermelon flavor, and I was like, I'm not really in for the fruity flavor of gum. I was like, I'll just get Cobalt. I used to chew Cobalt all the time. And the funny thing about, chewing 5 gum is it's like, stimulate the sensations, and it has all these, crazy things that they like to say about, what it feels like to chew 5 gum. And I get in the car and taking the plastic off on the gum, and, you get the first kind of ring off, and then once you pull it out of the plastic, all of that smell from all those pieces of gum has been condensed, and it's been sitting there for a long time. So when you take that plastic off, that's like a giant wave of the smell. And because I haven't chewed it in so long, that smell hit me, and it brought back just an array of different memories from different times that I was wrestling. And the first thing that it brought me to was there was a time that my mom and I we were headed down for Houston Nationals, and we were driving down. It's a 4.5 hour drive from where we used to live, and I'm sitting there in the back seat and had like the DVD player or my iPod or something like that, because I mean this was years ago, and I was sitting in the back seat, and I was like laid down because like I think we left like decently early in the morning, because we were trying to make it for something, and I'm sitting there, and the only thing I can remember from the story is the fact that I chewed 5 gum the entire way down, because for the entire drive I sat there and I was chewing gum and I was spitting it into a water bottle. I was chewing and I was spitting into a water bottle. I was chewing and spitting into a water bottle. For 4.5 hours, I did this. So it wasn't like, oh, like I chewed one stick of gum and then like once it kind of lost its flavor, like I chewed it for a little long and then I waited. No, this was 4.5 straight hours of chewing gum and spitting into a bottle, where I filled up over a full water bottle. It was like, I got most of the way to the top and then I stopped because I didn't want to like actually fill it up. So like, and then I started on another one, and I got a pretty good portion into that one too. And it's interesting sitting here and thinking about it, because it's like most people, like, oh my gosh, that's so gross. Like, how could you just sit there and spit into a water bottle? And especially to fill up a full water bottle of spit. I was semi close on weight, and I knew that the scale that we had, sometimes it was a little heavy compared to the ones that we weighed in on. So, if I knew that I was a little close on weight, or, I was kind of like just on, or maybe even just under, I could be just over, or, actually weigh a lot more in, on a calibrated scale, because sometimes scales just aren't the same. And I knew this going down. I was like, I know I'm close, and I just don't want to take any extra precautions. But knowing the time frame of when we were leaving and whatnot, it's not like I had time to like go run. So we're sitting there, and it's like we have to drive down no matter what. And by the time we get down there, I'll check on the check scale, and by that time, I think I don't know, I think we had mapped it out to where we were going to get there like 30 minutes or something before like weigh-ins. Like we got there in a good time frame, so I think there was going to be enough time that I could have done running if I had to, but it would have been cutting it close. So I'm like, all right, well, I think I'm good. And so I'm like, all right, well, I'm just going to spit in a bottle, and did it for 4.5 hours. And I don't really think much of it now at this point, because it's kind of something that got forgotten until I actually bought a pack of 5 gum, and then next thing you know, I was like, oh, that was a memory I forgot I had. And it brought back a lot of memories, like kind of like that, where it's like it's not that great of a memory, and it was something that like really sucked. But the thing that gets me is it brought back that memory, and what Houston Nationals was. So that year, so I ended up making weight, by the way, which to my credit, I've never busted weight in my entire career, because that's the one thing you can actually control. Never, never busted weight, never really kind of became that close. I mean, even that tournament, after spitting in a bottle for 4.5 hours, I don't know, I think I was like a half pound under or something like that. The craziest part about that tournament, though, is I ended up winning that tournament. And it's not that the 5 gum made me remember winning the tournament. It made me remember the fact that I chewed gum and spit into a bottle for 4.5 hours. And I can remember the feeling of the Ozarka bottle, because it's a thin plastic water bottle. Like you can feel the contents inside, like its temperature, and spit isn't cold. So like the bottle over time just kind of had this like lukewarm, not because it's not hot, but it's definitely warm. It's not like room temperature. It's a little bit warmer than room temperature, and especially over time with enough saliva. And I can feel that feeling in my hands, and sitting there and just holding the water bottle and spitting into it. And, the feeling comes back of the warmth of holding the bottle, even kind of now, like, my jaw being the fact of chewing gum for that long. And all of those sensations came back, but none came back for what it felt like when I got my hand raised in the championship match and actually took first at a national tournament. I don't really remember the feeling of what it was like standing onto the podium, having a good sized gold medal around my neck. The flash of the pictures, none of that. Like none of that came back. The only thing that came back was the fact that it absolutely sucked going there. The drive was 4.5 hours, but to me it felt like 10. It felt like it was never ending. It felt like we were never going to get there. It felt like this continuous thing as, I'm sitting here chewing this gum and listening to these songs. And then I think I tried watching a movie at one point, but it's like that drive felt so long because of what I was doing during the drive. And all of that compounded into itself, brought back a sensation and a feeling that it was just like, that really sucked. But it sucked for something that ended up being so good. And to win a national tournament, I can't see, and this is the problem. I don't remember if that was the first year or second year that I won it, because I remember that I did it for one of them, but I don't know if I did it the first time I went or the second time, because I won Houston Nationals back to back. And that's kind of the weird part about it. It's just like I can't remember if I did that for the first and I didn't have to do it for the second one, or maybe it doesn't really matter, because it's semantics, it's past, it's something that's pretty irrelevant at this point. But it's interesting to think of, okay, 5 gum, a Russian pop of, hey, this certain smell brings back all these memories. And it's just interesting that we don't really sit and think about the good things that we've had in our life. There's a lot of times where we sit about the bad stuff that we've had in our life, where we're going to sit there and we're going to, complain that, oh, well, I don't have the best phone, or, well, I don't have the best this, and, well, this kind of sucks, and, well, this isn't working, and, I remember the time where I was doing this and I felt this way. It's like, all we think about all day long, and a lot of people do, it's constantly about the negatives. And like me sitting here, like when I thought about the 5 gum, like, yeah, those memories popped into my head, but then I remembered what tournament it was from, and then I had like sat and went through the process. I was like, oh yeah, that was Houston Nationals. Oh, I ended up winning Houston Nationals. Oh, that's kind of crazy. But the most vivid memory was of the pain and the suffering and this sucks. And it's good to remember that, because I know, okay, the pain and suffering is what leads to the good. But it's important to remember the good, because without the good, you don't know why you went through the pain. It's like, oh yeah, I went and I did this and I achieved this, and it was something that was good for me. And a lot of my teammates were really successful at that tournament that year too, and we had a really good time. And it was just all of that then starts to funnel back. But it's like I had to look outside of the fact that, wow, I sat and chewed gum for 4.5 hours and spit into a bottle for 4.5 hours. Like, that's absolutely disgusting. Like, it was this, because it's not clear. It's not it was a blue color from the gum. Like, the gum changed over time. It was like dye. The dye was getting into the saliva, and so it made this like blue liquid, and it was just disgusting. And I sit here and, I think about, was it worth it? Of course it was. And it brought back, someone brought up, how, it's October, and, next month is going to be Thanksgiving. And, they were going on and on about Thanksgiving. And, it kind of made me do the same thing, where, I don't really have a great memory of Thanksgiving. Normally it's either, we're starting right into the season, or, I have a tournament. I remember there was a tournament that I had 2 days after Thanksgiving. I've had tournaments the week before Thanksgiving, and then, you're off that. And then the following week, you have. But for me, I don't have any really that, I mean, I do now, but it was hard for me to think of like, I know people that can go, oh man, Thanksgiving's always the best. Like, I never got a chance to eat a bunch of food. Like, I never got a chance to be that just, hey, it's stuff your face all day long. Hey, sit and enjoy, this day is awesome. The whole point is this, it's a day of giving thanks and it's a day of being around. But that to a lot of people is a day spent around eating. It is most holidays revolve around some type of family meal or some type of meal that everyone as a group somewhat or another comes together and has some type of meal. You can look at Friendsgiving, you can look at any other type of thing that you look at. Normally you have some type of meal involved with it. So for me with Thanksgiving, like I've got a big family and I'm, very thankful for that and very, gracious and grateful that we have that opportunity to meet together and get together. But for me, a lot of those times I was miserable when I was around because I couldn't really eat. I was still cutting weight. I had to watch what I was eating because I knew that I was already overweight normally when Thanksgiving happened, and it was okay, well, I'm gonna have to be down anyways. And so the memories that I have of Thanksgiving, I remember there was one year where we went to my aunt and uncle's for this time. We were meeting at their place, and it was close enough to where I ran to their house. I didn't get in the car and drive with my parents. I was close on weight and I knew I kind of wanted to eat more. So instead of driving over with them, I ran there. And did it really help that much? Maybe not. I mean, at the time I was so light. I mean, I had to do a lot for a little. And that's mostly what I remember about Thanksgiving. Like I remember taking this really small plate of not very much food and just kind of eating along, because it's not the fact that like I did eat the food, but because of knowing the calorie intake of all of it, like the portion size was so small. Like my dad makes these sweet potatoes and it's like a tab of butter and a bunch of brown sugar and it creates this like sugar molasses that form, and it's a lot of calories. It's a lot of calories. And I would have like one like fifth of a coin, because they're cut into medallions, and I would have like a small little sliver of one, and I would have like one of that and like a piece of turkey, and I'd get like a quarter of a scoop of stuffing, just the salt level of and that's normally in stuffing. And it's like all these things, it's like I wanted to enjoy it, but it was almost like I was having like one bite of each. And I'm grateful that my family was able to be together and have these times, but it's like it was always tough being around everyone making these giant plates of food. And at least for me, the thing that did help is all three of my three uncles on my mom's side, her three brothers, all three of them wrestled in college. And so there is a okay level there where they know and they knew the pain that I was going through during that time, and they knew how hard it was. So it was kind of remedied a little bit having them around. But it again goes and touches on the fact that it's this clear description of the shitty side of what happened. It's not really eating. It's running to their house just to even be able to eat a couple bites more. And then while I was there that one year, I think there was a couple years where I went and ran like in the middle of the day. Like whenever we showed up, I'd already done a workout or whatever, and I normally would go run sometime after dinner just to try to work off what I ate. Or, hey, the gym's gonna open back up at 9 o'clock. All right, sounds good. I'm gonna go run on the elliptical and sit in the sauna. Like that's what I remember. And then I have to break down, I have to sit and remember there are good parts to this. Look at the bigger scheme. there's two sides to every coin. So if I want to sit and focus and look at the negative and be pissed off about, well, I didn't really get to eat that much, and I always had to do these things, but at the same time I look at it and go, I would not be where I'm at today if I didn't do those things. There were sacrifices that I had to make that happen, to make weight, to wrestle in that tournament, to achieve like I knew I could achieve. Really, for most people, they don't understand the weight cut. That really is that's the hard part. The actual going on the mat and wrestling, that you can construct up to whatever it may be. For some people, it's a blast. It's a relief of anger. It's a relief of whatever. But at the end of the day, the on the mat stuff, that's completely different. That's the enjoyable side of the sport. The part of the sport that you're actually really competing on is the weight cut side. Because, if you're able to cut 20 pounds with ease, and, let's say you're a guy that walks around at 152 and you're able to cut down and wrestle 132, well, that makes a big difference if that 20 pounds is no problem for you. Sometimes you can have a person who weighs 138 and it's tough for him to get to 132. That's kind of the weird part about wrestling, is like you can have some guys that then just go, hey, I weigh 138, I'm gonna wrestle 138. Hey, I weigh 195, I'm gonna wrestle 195. Hey, I wrestle 188, I'm gonna wrestle 195 and continuously eat throughout the whole season and try to bulk while I'm doing it. There's so many different approaches to wrestling. That's where it's like the mental game that you have with wrestling comes with the weight you decide to wrestle at. Because for me, it's not like I cut that much weight, but I was cutting, so my freshman year I wrestled 120, and I normally cut 12 pounds a week. I normally weighed like 132. And so, cutting 10, 12 pounds a week at 120 pounds, that's just under 10% of what I weighed. At 132, okay, it's a little bit less than 10%, but it's like, that's 10%. And looking at it in that number, it's, you can kind of go, oh, that's kind of a lot of weight. And, I can sit here and go, yeah, but it really wasn't that bad. It really wasn't too much. My freshman year, I did entirely the stupid way of the way that my diet was, and I didn't really know nutrition levels like I should have. But I still go back to, there's a lot of bad memories that wrestling had, but it takes these one-off kind of like occasions for someone to spark or bring something up. And so that's the reason I started with the gum story, is it's like, without that really, if I probably wouldn't have smelled that pack of gum, I probably wouldn't have remembered that I ever spit into a water bottle and filled up over a full water bottle. I wouldn't have remembered that. That's something that is like pushed down, and it's tucked in a different alley of the brain that requires different access to it, and it also brings the good memories with it. And so I don't really know if this is a two sides of everything has two sides type of conversation and type of message. I've had a lot of shitty stories that go with wrestling. There's a lot of not fun days where, wanting to throw up on the mat, feeling like you're going to pass out in practice, and literally can't even really stand up or cut in practice because the mat is so wet, because it's so hot in the room. Everyone's so drenched that there's like a layer of like water that was poured on top of the mats. Like those types of days and practices, like I know those days. Like those days are fucking miserable. But you know what? Without those days, I would have never been the wrestler that I was. Without spitting in that water bottle, I would have never won that national tournament. Without sacrificing eating what I ate on Thanksgiving most years, I wouldn't have been able to be the wrestler that I was. So we make certain sacrifices, and we make certain decisions in our life, and we go, well, this was a shitty decision and every decision was made for a reason. Now, I could have decided, you know what, fuck it. I'm gonna eat what I want to eat. I'm gonna do this, and I'm not gonna practice as hard as I practiced. Well, I probably wouldn't have been as good of a wrestler. And that's just the fact. I made a bunch of hard decisions. I went through a bunch of really hard situations, and there was a lot of times that I was really just kind of like, why? And it's easier for me to now sit and think about it. But there was a lot of different occasions with all the different sports that I've played where it's all the same thing. You make a decision, and your everyday decision following that is either to do things that you know is going to benefit your decision and your goal, or you do something that's not going to benefit it. That's plain and simple. Sometimes, for the benefit of the grander goal and the decision that you made to try to go after, is I'm going to continuously be in shitty situations over and over and over and over and over again until eventually, oh, I'm a Houston National champ. I'm a Houston National back-to-back champ. Oh, I'm a Southwest Conference runner-up. I'm a national qualifier. I'm a Go Greco All-American. That's what it is. Man, I don't want to get up and go to the gym today. Well, if you don't, it's a day behind on your program. I've almost heard it described to the same degree, doubling a penny every day. If you think early on in the beginning, well, it's only 2 cents, and tomorrow's only 4 cents. Well, maybe I can just miss tomorrow. Well, if you miss tomorrow, and instead of it being 4 cents, it's again 2 cents, you just delayed yourself. If you go 1 cent, 2 cent, 2 cent, 2 cent, 2 cent, then 4 cent, and then 4 cent, 4 cent, and then 8 cent. The point is, you know what you have to do each day. I knew what I had to do most days when it came to wrestling. Most of it was shitty decisions and shitty situations. There's not really a better case scenario. It's like, well, maybe I could have went and sat in the sauna. Well, it's like, well, my muscles wouldn't have been fatigued to a degree of like, oh, I'm just exhausted. It would have been a different type of fatigue where my entire body feels miserable because I'm so hot and I'm just sweating and dehydrating. Which situation do you want? Do you want to go run on an elliptical with 2 pairs of sweats, 2 long sleeve shirts and a sweatshirt and a towel wrapped around you? Everything's tucked in, socks, sweats into socks and everything to that regard. And you're going to go run on an elliptical for an hour and a half. Or you just want to put on 1 pair of sweats, 1 long sleeve shirt, 1 sweatshirt, towel inside your head, everything tucked in, and go sit in the sauna for an hour. Well, which one sounds worse? I don't know, they both sound pretty shitty to me. But it kind of had to be done. Those are really the only 2 decisions I could have made. Now, could I have went and sat on the couch and watched TV and ate Doritos? Yeah, I could have. But you know what? Me going and sitting on the couch eating Doritos didn't help the goal of me being a national champion. They didn't help me in the goal to be, I don't know, list any one of my achievements in wrestling and football and baseball, in golf, any of them. Everything I did as an athlete, most people looked at it and they're like, that's probably a wrong decision. And I'm like, sucks. I think it's the best decision for me. I think it's perfectly on my path. I think this is where I'm going to keep going. I never really went at off seasons. I played sport after sport after sport. I still do it currently. Football, hit the off season. I hit the gym, and I basically started training for MMA. And I'm now currently training for MMA and will continue to train at MMA now because I decided now actually to go and decide down that path. But it's not going to stop me from playing football. Semi-pro, that's kind of the reason why I chose to go do MMA, because I'm going to be able to coincide them together when the spring comes up. And because I'm going to be continuously working out all the time with MMA, football, we have one practice a week and one game a week. It's semi-pro. That's the nature of it. That's the fun side. So I'm going to be training for MMA, and then once the football season comes around, I get to use a little bit of a break in supplementing 2 workouts for football instead of some other type of workout. Whether it was running, going to the gym, a sparring session, a rolling session, that will get substituted for a football practice and a football game. That's it. Otherwise, I'm still training, and I'm still going to the gym, still going to class, still doing that. It's the same right now. It's the same I just did with volleyball. We played 2 games of volleyball a week. Well, those 2 games were used to supplement 1 workout, because I normally work out 3 days or three times a day, Monday through Thursday. Normally work out 1 to 2 times Friday, 1 to 2 times Saturday, and rest on Sunday. That's just the way it is. So now I can take all those workouts and you combine all of them together. You go, okay, well, what workout do I want to do here? At the end of the day, working out's working out. If I go run 2 miles or I go play a game of football, still working out, still cardio. That's the nature of the beast. So continue doing, and I know this is kind of now rambling, and I'm going to kind of basically try to wrap it back in together because it was a super long-winded answer to nothing. There are shitty situations that everyone has to go through to achieve anything. There's no perfect path that, requires no pain, no suffering to any type of greatness. And whether that's spitting in a bottle, or that's working out 3 times a day, or that's a severe diet, there's going to be pain and suffering. But that pain and suffering, if it's always in conjuncture going after one said goal, always make it a little bit better each day. Keep moving forward. That's all it is. Just keep moving forward, keep moving forward, keep moving forward. And next thing you know, you might end up being, whatever it is you set your mind out to. Sometimes you go, oh, that's just a little goal. You just keep moving on past. And once you hit it, you go, boom, I got that. So like for me, that's kind of now why I didn't really remember, being the champ at that point. That's why a lot of those things got forgotten, because it was no longer about just being champion. It was like, well, I'm going to go and be something a little bit better. And then you go a little bit better. And then you go a little bit better. And then you go a little bit better. Because it's like the age old, one door closes, another door opens. Well, that's kind of the situation that goes on. You keep working hard. You're essentially just trying to find the right key, Sometimes you just break the damn door down. And as you go through, you then find that there's another door, and another, and another, and another. So that's kind of the message for today. That's the part 1 of the series, Stories from a Wrestler. Let me know what you guys thought, and I guess we'll just kind of go from there. I'm going to leave it up to you guys in terms of if you guys liked it, if it's something that you guys want to hear more of, if it's more that we'd like to dive into. Let me know what you think about the lights. I've got a nice color that I can change anytime I want. So, I'm going to be doing and playing around with the light colors and see what you guys like the best. The flags semi will change. It's pretty much going to be these 3, and then the Texas one might get rotated out sometimes. Maybe the Don't Tread on Me. The American flag stays. Pretty much the Don't Tread on Me will primarily stay. Sometimes they might shuffle from position to position just to switch things up, because this is Switch Up Sports with Mighty Q. So, for all you guys listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcast, if you're watching on YouTube or Rumble, I want you guys to either subscribe or follow, smash a like button, share this with your friends. And if it's for you guys that are clipping and doing things, it's going to be end up on TikTok as well. It's going to be on Instagram. It'll eventually be on Facebook. All of those different things, all those different natures. Do all the social media stuff, like, follow, comment, all that fun jazz. And you guys, Have a fantastic weekend. I'm probably just going to see you guys next week. We'll do something from there. So for this one, Mighty Q is out.